World War II, the home front. During the home front of the war, people were concerned with jobs, especially immigrants. Several of these immigrants were braceros. These were Mexican-American men from Mexico employed in low-wage agricultural jobs. The sudden influx of Mexican immigrants caused for racial tensions to be stirred up and caused the Zoot Suit riots, which was between whites and Mexicans in LA and Southern California, while other racial tensions stirred up between whites and African Americans, which dramatically increased, with the most massive racial fight in Detroit, leaving 34 dead. Many Native Americans were used as Navajo code talkers, who spoke in their native language, so German and Japanese code breakers would not be able to understand the codes that the Allies were using. While this was all happening, the Japanese were forced into internment camps all around the United States. The national debt was also on the rise, as the debt increased from $42 billion to $201 billion over the course of 4 years. Thus, businesses and employees alike did not have money. Women were useful in that they were workers and helped build weapons for the Allies. America now enters the Pacific Theater of World War II. American troops had been holding Bataan desperately for 5 months when they finally surrendered to the ruthless Japanese invaders, who then marched the American troops 80 miles of hell where no mercy was given in any form. And as Bataan was one of the last Allied forts in the Philippines, when lost, it allowed the Japanese to finally control a lot of the Pacific Theater, giving them a huge advantage over the Allied soldiers. While this was happening, the Japanese decided to move elsewhere and employ other dirty tactics, such as using the kamikaze pilots, who then crashed into other airplanes and other ships. The Battle of Midway, which showed a huge turning point within the war as it saw the Japanese advance into the Pacific Theater. After the American victory at Midway, the American troops were able to employ the island hopping, which allowed them to cut past different Japanese fortresses and cut down on Japanese forces. The American Army, Navy, and Marines were back on their feet and ready for action, and planned to take back the Pacific Theater to whatever means were necessary. One of the most famous battles of the Pacific was the Battle of Iwo Jima, which had fallen to the Americans through their island hopping strategy, and was used as a waypoint for supplies and soldiers to go through, and was where the famous picture of the troops raising the flag was taken. As America progressed into the Pacific Theater, Truman called a meeting with Stalin and British leaders in Potsdam, Germany, and this was later known as the Potsdam Conference, that ended with the decision to drop the atomic bombs on Japan in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. America was also busy within the Atlantic Theater of the war as well. The beginning of American intervention was on D-Day, when a massive landing of American troops appeared on the shores of Normandy in Europe. An important major battle in Europe was the Battle of the Bulge, in which Germany pressed into American lines and were eventually pushed back and then cornered by Soviet troops from behind, while American troops did sustain very heavy losses. Now, the final days was coming near an end, and Hitler knew his time was up. So in his last ditch effort, and he threw all his troops that he had at the American lines, it failed, and the American troops won the Battle of the Bulge. Now, with both Soviets and Americans closing in on Hitler, he decided to commit suicide right before the end of the war. And finally, it was VE Day.
Hey guys, Hitler's dead!